Alexander. Shabbat for three. Bingo!
Bud will get it for the win. Got it! He is hard to believe.
Here's Jordan.
Yes. The Magic, a 360 turn with the dribble. Magic down the middle. Gives underneath to Worthy. Slam dunk.
Third in the corner. Double fake.
And that's when we get to the fun stuff. The summer of 2010, when D. Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Melo. No, was Melo a free? No, Melo wasn't a free agent yet.
Chris Bosh, Carlos Boozer.
Carlos Boozer, yep. And so the big news was that I remember the Knicks fans started getting into it. We're gonna go get LeBron. This was is this what you guys set up all the cap space clearance for?
Yeah. It was the LeBron sweepstakes. Remember him. That summer was
insane.
LeBron ended it obviously in dramatic fashion with the decision.
Yeah.
Changed basketball for the next 10, 12 years.
Maybe honestly forever to me.
It can always change back.
Just because the superstar team up. That was when the term super team got coined. Because
Right.
I never heard that term before. Even with everyone's like, oh, the Celtics. No, nobody was calling them that because Ainge made the trades. That was when they formed it together. Everybody started calling them super team.
Which is still, again, it's unfair because they had to ask Garnett if he wanted to be traded to Boston, who, by the way, Garnett said on the Up and Smoke, all the Smoke podcast that he wanted to get traded to the Lakers, and he almost.
Yeah, and then Kobe, and then they just didn't do it. The Celtics just came in with it. Because the Lakers hadn't gone POW yet. It's because that was when Kobe was looking for that second star.
Right. And McHale was in Minnesota, so he had a friendship there with Danny Ainge.
I know. McHale tossed him a bone. I want to ask you, first of all, did you think you're going to get LeBron? And secondly, how disappointed were you and the fans when he decided with Miami?
So I think the process went, we heard how it went with the Knicks, and they were saying that they did a stupid presentation that included like the Sopranos. I think it was Tony Soprano, God bless the dead. James Gandolfini was involved. And they were totally turned off by it. And it was like, okay, if he wants to come to the Knicks, it would have to be in spite of James Dolan, who everyone was still, there was still rumors that Isaiah Thomas had something to do with was involved with Knicks' decisions, or he had the ear of James Dolan still. So after that, after we heard about the meeting, we were like, as a Knicks fans, you're like, oh shit. Maybe we'll get a chance with D Wade and Bosh or Carlos Boozer. We'll get something, or Amare Stoudemire. I didn't want Stoudemire, by the way, because that was McDice to me all over again at the time. Another guy from the West Coast, bum knee, who just had knee surgery.
He did?
Yeah. Amare Stoudemire had microfracture surgery.
But that was what, were you talking about 06?
I think 06, yeah. Because he came back.
The thing is, though, that 2010 season before you guys got him, he was a beast, though. Like, Suns made it to the conference finals that year with now may have been like, that was up there with one of his best seasons. They took the Lakers to 6, and then Kobe, Ron Artest had that game winner in game 5.
You cannot let him get his hands on this basketball. And you got to stay down and be disciplined because you know how well he shot fakes.
Aaron Dudley defending on Bryant. Both teams are over the foul limit. Odom will throw in. Bryant turns and comes up short. Ron Artest, who took that bad shot just a moment ago. The Suns are shocked. They will review it. It appeared he got it off on time. Ron Artest with the game winner for the Lakers.
And then game 6, it was a good game, but Kobe, that was like just vintage Bean closeout.
Yeah, but if you look at Amare Stoudemire when he's like his first 2-3 years in the league, he kills Tim Duncan. Like it's like, yeah, that's when I remember seeing Stoudemire.
Even when they got swept?
I think it was when they got, no, they if I'm not mistaken, they beat them one game in the playoffs with Marbury with the game winner.
Oh, well,
Marbury was still there.
Timeouts. He missed. Robinson tips it. Stoudemire. Marbury has it. Here's Marbury on the drive. Hangs it 3.
Oh! Man, can you believe it? Stephon Marbury struggling all game. Comes out with the runner at the buzzer. And the Phoenix Suns have shot San Antonio if the bucket counts.
And the officials are conferring near midcourt, and they will take a look.
I was talking about Amare.
Yeah, Amare was there.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about Nash and Amare.
No, before Nash gets there, Marbury has a season with Amare. And if it's not that series, it's probably the following season when they play San Antonio. He's destroying Tim Duncan. Young Amare Stoudemire was vicious. He was bulkier. He looked crazy. So I was a fan of his. It was just after the microfracture surgery, I was just scared about the whole Antonio McDyess thing. And it's like that's part of the whole Knicks movement where they do these bum deals for washed up players. And so that's what made that 2010 offseason so interesting, because you had Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and really it's D Wade and LeBron who you think you have a chance at.
Yeah.
And they're in their prime. D Wade's injuries, they're lingering, but you still know it's D Wade. It's his
He averaged 30 points a game in 2010.
And that might have been the year they played Boston in the first round.
Yeah, and he went crazy, but he just didn't have any help, really. Like, he won that one game basically single-handedly.
By himself, and he had a game winner. He had a game winner, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think I think what happened was the other game that they lost at home, Pierce made a game winner.
Shot clock is turned off. Celtics will try to go for the win. Again, the Heat with a foul to give. Pierce, final seconds. Pierce puts it up for the win. Knocks it down. Celtics win.
But the game that they took, I don't think he made a game winner the game he took off, but he just went crazy in the fourth, like just total takeover, like something crazy. I remember that. And
it was still, even though LeBron, in my opinion, was still being exposed by Boston. I didn't care how many points he scored against them. I didn't care if he had a triple double to end the season with Cleveland.
Looking back, honestly, Wade individually gave them more problems than LeBron in that 2010 that I can remember. LeBron had a better team than Wade that far. Yeah, the Celtics here, the 2010. I feel like, I mean, I have to rewatch the series, but it's from my memory, like they couldn't really stop D Wade at all. Like LeBron, they figured it out in game 5. And
no, LeBron, remember the controversy with him and Delonte West with his moms, like there was supposed to be a relationship.
Yeah, that's definitely, I know they did that for the game 5, but
nobody, what LeBron was doing, even just, again, we always talk about it, the lack of mid-range game or whatever.
They sagged off and just loaded up the defense, and he just was standing at the top of the key in that game.
Yeah,
do you remember that game 5? I know it was the whole Delonte West, but he I don't know, is that like?
Did they go? It was 5 games they went.
No, it was 2-2, and no, the Cavs were up 2-1 and lost 3 straight games. And game 5, I remember it like it was yesterday. Game 5, he basically this was the first time in his career where I could say, I looked like LeBron just gave up. Like, he just – everyone says the Delonte thing, but he just, he couldn't shoot. They were sagging off with Tony Allen. We're loading up the defense on him. And the role players seemed to lose confidence. The Celtics defense was just too good. As he couldn't counter it. He didn't have that mid-range. That shot was too inconsistent. And his mind was just messed up after that game 5. And then game 6 he tried, but it was 10 turnovers.
So it went to 6 games. Game 6,
he had a great stat line. Like he had a lot of rebounds, triple double, but he had a bunch of turnovers, or something like that.
Yes, but the thing was with LeBron that what I was so impressed by was I thought he was the best player I saw since Jordan. Personally, from the once that third season he started averaging 30 points, I said, this is the best player since Jordan. It's not close.
What about Shaq and Kobe?
Kobe's not in that conversation for me.
Well, Kobe, I will say this, though. Kobe, in this year that we're talking about, though, 2010, was the best player in the NBA.
Okay, so then that's the whole
Because LeBron
Jordan.
couldn't shoot enough for me. Like he didn't have that confidence yet.
Not skill wise,
I'm sorry, okay, confidence as in the final, same thing we were talking about earlier. That final four, like he had confidence for sure, but like compared to Kobe when he's battle tested, won championships, like that was Kobe's peak mentally and skillfully.
Right. So okay, and that's my point. So imagine LeBron James with Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, and Lamar Odom. Those are basically 3 7-footers. If
Yeah,
LeBron,
I think it would have been good. I still don't know if they would have won the championship.
they would have won it. He took the Celtics to 7 games. He took the Pistons to 7 games. LeBron James was just, and I'm not, and I don't want to like we're sort of having revisionist history, and I had to be JP. Shout out to JP from Twitter. He sort of checked everyone on it. Like the Cavs did fit a defensive team around LeBron because they needed these stops because
exactly
the mid-range game, and that's just who he was. And it's Cleveland. Nobody was coming to Cleveland. They had to do the best that they can. They did do pretty good. They were winning 60+ games a season.
The only reason I don't think he could have won with the Lakers is because one, the triangle would have taken the triangle works with like really good post players. He didn't have that post game. And two, I don't think he would have closed games like in the highest level like yet. Because he was a suspect closer up until like 2011, 12. He had his moments, but he wasn't reliable, like especially at the line. That's my biggest thing with him. And think about it this way. Even though you say that Lamar Odom, Pau Gasol, that team, that was very good, fantastic team. Every team he's won with has had more star power than those Laker teams that Kobe had with Gasol. Every team.
It still boils down to me that you have 3 7-footers and you got a pass first player, pass first superstar who can pass from anywhere with Pau Gasol there. He never had a big man like Pau Gasol until Anthony Davis. Like
Bosh
that's
great.
Who?
Bosh. I give Gasol maybe a slight edge, but Bosh was really good.
I got Pau Gasol better than Bosh.
He is Bosh. He is. But Bosh is no lackey.
No, I'm not. No, but he would have fit better with Gasol. Like what he did with Big Z, what he did with is it Mozgov? Yeah, with Mozgov later on in his career, like Big Z was at the end of his tenure, and he just knew how to pass the ball. But anyway, that bulk of LeBron's career, even though we still saw his flaws, because that's the thing when you separate Kobe and everybody from LeBron, deer in the headlights versus the Celtics, even though he has a triple-double to end that series. It was still a thing. The year before, he spent the entire series chucking against the Orlando Magic, even though he hit the game winner in game 2.
Yeah.
There were flaws in him that I saw. Even with that being said, I said, you have to do everything you can to sign LeBron James.
Of course. He was coming into his prime. He was going to be the best player in the league. Everyone knew this. Like, everyone knew that Kobe was getting older, and he was going to be the end soon.
And so did we want him? Yes. Every Knicks fan wanted him. For the most part. I don't think
you disappointed when he didn't sign, though, at him or just the fan organization?
It was both. It was a mixture of both.
Because now that I'm thinking about it from LeBron's point of view, it's like, what did you guys show that entices him besides the market, the Madison Square Garden, the fact that you can get players to New York because it's a big city? What did you guys show? Like, I feel like the way LeBron is like, he needs some kind of assurance, except for when he came to I guess when he came to the Lakers, that's the only time where he didn't really have assurance. But the assurance is that Pelinka and Magic Johnson are taking over ownership. It's not going to be as bad as with Jim Buss. And it's the Lakers. Like, the Knicks are one thing, big market, but the Lakers are a big market with history. You know what I mean?
They're showing exactly what Leon Rose is showing now, where you're showing a competency from the front office as an organization, right? When you have that, it's just different than the dysfunction you saw under Isaiah Thomas. It's different than you see the sort of dysfunction you have after Donnie Walsh and with Phil Jackson. So you got these big names, but what's happening? As a star player, why would you even respect that? You know, who do we have in the front office to make these deals while I'm there as a superstar? And obviously, LeBron signs with the Heat, and D-Wade goes there, and it's like, it makes sense. It also sucked as a Knicks fan that we lost LeBron James and D-Wade, the two biggest stars,
and then
two best players in the offseason. And fuck Bosh. It's LeBron and D-Wade we lost. And who did we lose them to?
Each other.
Pat Riley. Let's not forget that. Pat Riley, what if he was on the Knicks still? All the last 10 years from 2000 to 2010 don't look like that. So that sucked. and we ended up getting Amare though.
Yeah. So how did you guys feel when you got Amare? That was a big move. That was the first big star I saw in my time watching basketball with the Knicks.
I can't lie. I didn't like it because I thought it was Antonio McDyess all over again.
But okay, so let's talk about some other movies you guys made as well that offseason. You brought in Raymond Felton from the Charlotte Bobcats. Landry Fields was a rookie coming out of Stanford, and he was one of the best players in the Pac-10 that season. I remember watching it. Him and Isaiah Thomas were the best. Him and Quincy Pondexter that was playing with Isaiah Thomas. But Landry Fields was really good in college. And then you had Mozgov as a rookie. But it was mainly, to me, the big was Amare Stoudemire, Raymond Felton, Gallinari, and Wilson Chandler was like the bulk of that team. And Amare Stoudemire came out and had like the best start to the season of his career. I remember he was in MVP talks. There was so much buzz around the Knicks. And I remember this was probably my favorite, like my peak of like my liking the Knicks. Like I really enjoyed watching you guys play. I was super happy for Amare. You guys were on an 8-game winning streak to start the season, 16-9 through 25 games. You remember anything about that?
If I'm not mistaken, Amare had this game, went to overtime. He ends up hitting a game-winning shot, but it gets called off because that's when the reviews started coming into the league, and they wave it off against the Celtics. So it was, I think that's what ended the 8-game winning streak to start the season off. I definitely remember that. I was pleasantly surprised, and I got caught up in the madness. It was even more exciting than last year's Knicks run because because it's offense. You know what I mean? Like it's D'Antoni, Felton comes in. It's just such a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, you guys are second in the NBA in points per game this year.
That's insane. I didn't even know that. I didn't remember that. Wilson Chandler. I mean, this is the Rooster, the Gallinari. The thing, and that's the other thing.
Wow, by the way, I just wanted to say, great memory. December 15th, 2010, Knicks winning streak is snapped by 2 points by the Boston Celtics.
It just stood out to me. I was living in the Bronx at the time, and I remember watching it just being like it was the Celtics. It's still the Celtics. Garnett was coming back around.
I'm looking at their record right now. I forgot about this. 20-4 to start the season. Jesus.
Oh, so
they were legit still.
I was pleasantly surprised. I just did not know how much Amare had in the tank, and it felt like, damn, we got to do the best that we can while this guy's hot. Like, what are we gonna do? And
39-10 that game.
Bro, it was just amazing. What he did to the Celtics was amazing. He won my heart over in that game, even though we lost. So
his career, averaging almost 9 assists per game, shooting the ball well. Stoudemire from the elbow. Again draws the double team. Pass knocked away. Gallinari coast to coast. Stoudemire with the follow, and he's got all 7 for the Knicks.
Being more of a playmaker than just a spot-up shooter.
And Fields, by the way, a second-round pick out of Stanford, who is starting as a rookie. Look out. Felton to Stoudemire. Get out of the way. 0.4 of a second, down by 2. Stoudemire for the win. Will it count? Will it count?
That's after I mean, he stroked it, but that's after. Because he wasn't facing the basket. I mean, that's just not even close.
Yeah, you're right.
Wilson Chandler. Who's the backup point guard? Tony Douglas is on that team.
It was Tony Douglas.
Because
Raymond Felton was the starter.
Tony Douglas, Gallo, Amare. Tyson Chandler's not on there. Who's our center?
Mozgov. That's when Mozgov got Mozgoved by Blake Griffin that year. That was awesome. And Gallinari, oh my God, I remember that game for sure.
That's going to be an easy YouTube short right now. I'm gonna do the highlight. I'm gonna put it in.
Around the grip and straight pick. Oh, me, oh my, what a play! He stopped about 3 feet short of the rim and just threw it down.
Ralph, it's like the elevator went to the 3rd floor and paused, and he got fouled. He said, I got to go another level. Watch this play. Look at this.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness.
Dives to the basket. Douglas wraparound pass inside to Stoudemire. Nearly picked off. It is by Blake. A foot race to the rim with Gallinari. Spins to the right. Oh, he punches it in with the right hand. I don't believe he does it again. Get on your feet, Clipper Nation.
He was our starting center.
Yeah, he really was. And that's part of why then, so you're 28 and 26. And then the move comes that starts to train.
It's lingering. That entire first half of the season, everything's lingering about Carmelo. And I understood it. I understood what the Knicks were trying to do. By the way, we didn't mention when James Dolan became the Knicks owner officially. If I'm not mistaken, it's like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
He obviously was, he had the relationship with Isaiah Thomas, but we didn't mention the cable deal. Like MSG, the network, is a big deal now because they had to redo their deal with in New York City. You have 3 major cable networks. It's Verizon, Optimum, and Time Warner. So with MSG, they had to they were renewing their deal or whatever contract talks they were going through. And, for me, it felt like the Yankees had the Yes Network. The Lakers later on, they signed a major deal with Fox Sports.
No, Spectrum Sportsnet.
Spectrum Sportsnet. And
that was a big deal.
Right. And so did the Dodgers. The Dodgers signed a major deal.
That was a bigger deal because people couldn't watch the games.
Which one?
Dodgers.
Right. So that's okay. So that's what was going on with the Knicks. There were blackouts. There were blackouts with the Knicks game. So Dolan knows this. And I felt like we got Amare, and that's the reason why he had to get Donnie Walsh and go and try to attract 2 superstars. So the Carmelo thing was like a part of that. And you read these things in the paper, and it goes deeper than just basketball. So when you're arguing in the barbershop and you're arguing at work with people who love the Knicks, and they're telling you about I want Carmelo no matter what. I'm like, you're gonna trade the entire team that we started off 20-4, had an 8-game win.
No. The Celtics were 20-4.
Oh, so what were the Knicks? We were 8-0.
You guys were 16-9 through 25 games.
We were 16-9 right before Carmelo.
No, when Carmelo came, you were 28 and 26, so you started to teeter off a little bit. I'm not sure if that's because of injuries or something else, but 28 and 26 when Melo came.
We're 28 and 26.
That's probably why they pulled the trigger too, because they were like, okay, this team is good, but the early season honeymoon is over. We're probably gonna lose in the first round. That's probably what their thinking was, I could assume.
But they're still on pace to be better than any other
year. You could have progressed and figured it out. I always like seeing what a team does in the playoffs, and then you figure out in that offseason, okay, this is what we need to do, as opposed to just jumping the gun sometimes in the middle of the season.
So even though, all right, so again, we're all on pace to win 40 games, 41 games, which would leave us at 500.
A little bit over. I'd say you're probably like a 43 and 39 team, 44-38.
So
you traded him for Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, and Mozgov. So 3 starters plus a key reserve for Melo. And Chauncey Billups, though. Can't leave him out because that was a big deal, too, because Chauncey, he wasn't in his prime anymore, but he was still coming off some decent seasons in Denver. And I remember, you sent me that clip of them, Donnie Walsh talking about it. And he was very high on Chauncey coming. And I remember Melo's first game against Milwaukee. He won. By the way, so you can tell me, what was the reaction and what was the buzz around the city when you got Melo? Was it everybody thinking you guys going to contend with Miami, or a lot of mixed? Okay.
Yeah, that was my beef with
people,
Knicks fans in general. That's when you can tell who was
realist and who's an optimist.
Yeah, and we just get into arguments at that point because the league had changed so much. I remember having arguments vividly about like what's a pure point guard. It started then. It's like Russell Westbrook's a point guard. Like, no, he's not.
Chauncey Billups, though, even though he's not necessarily, I don't know if you can call him a pure point guard, but he's a table setter. Yeah, he's a real table setter. Yeah, he is.
Point guard. I mean, he was a scorer too. He was on Minnesota with Kevin Garnett, and he would drop. I remember him dropping 40 points like the first game or one of them games with Garnett. So he was a scorer. I think the Celtics drafted Chauncey Billups.
Yeah.
Well, he was a scorer, but he can set the tone, like you said, he can set the table. But he was older by this point.
Yeah, he was. But he's still most people still thought he could contribute.
And also, I just wasn't excited because it just felt like Carmelo wasn't going to mesh with Amare. They were both face-up players, ball stoppers. Once again, we just saw Eddie Curry and Zach Randolph do this. Okay, now we have Chauncey Billups who can set the table, but set the table for what? To give one of them the ball at a time? Like it's
take turns. It sounds very take turnsy.
Take turns, and like even with Miami, I didn't like LeBron James and D Wade together. I always thought that was clunky. So imagine if you trade
They figured it out though. LeBron is a passer kind of guy, and D Wade is. But D Wade too. Here's the thing about Wade. Even though he's a scorer, like that dude can pass. He moves without the ball. Like he's very versatile to me. Like D Wade, he can do it from a lot of places. Like he can post up, mid post, even low post against smaller guards, 18 feet away. But you know what the thing was with the Heat is they found their formula was to try to push the pace as much as they could. And they started doing – that was the fastest teams that LeBron played for.
Was it faster than even the Cleveland teams? The early Cleveland teams? I thought they were kind of fast, like on a fast break. Because, I
think LeBron was just a train on the fast breaks, but that was all half court. Like, they were all defensive, as you said. Like, East Coast – remember that back then? This is something that's also changed during my time watching basketball. And I remember – I was reminded of this the other day when I was – a couple of weeks ago when I was watching the 08 playoffs with my friend. I have one friend that I do the same thing with. I actually did one video with him. It was why Kobe lost 2 finals that I shouted out in the beginning. But we're watching some of the 08 series again. And the East Coast and the West Coast, even then, I remember my uncle told me this about the 80s and 90s, but he said the East Coast and the West Coast played distinctively different styles. West Coast was a lot more offensive-minded, a lot more run and gun, and East Coast basketball was known to be physical, slower. And you can see that even with the Pistons, with the Cavs. Like, the Cavs were a physical defensive team with, like, Big Z, Verajao, like these guys were good, like rim protect. Like they were tall, very tall. And I feel like the identity of the East. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's not like that anymore. It's like every team kind of plays similarly. There's not many distinctive styles in terms of like East Coast and West Coast doesn't vary anymore. Everybody runs high pick and rolls and shoots a lot of threes.
Because of the zone defense, there's no more centers.
But zone defense was still in this era. Was still zone defense was legal.
Yeah, but it was. Remember, we have Duncan, all the big men are still there. Shaq, they're coming to the end of their tenures. So Duncan's the only one that lasted the longest, and Garnett even got hurt. So all these guys, they're starting to leave the league, and then you have LeBron's era, and there is no one that's going to stick to an East Coast or West Coast sort of style of play when everyone is changing teams, especially specifically the superstars.
Yeah.
Like even Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard went from West to East back to West, in the span of 3 seasons. So, yeah, I didn't like the Melo trade. Like it was the entire team we were trading for. It just didn't make sense. Now, I will say that there was pressure put on the Knicks because once again, they did want that second superstar, like I mentioned, because of the cable deal. And also
you gotta compete with the Heat, right?
Compete with the Heat, but remember, you also have to compete with the now Brooklyn Nets, the former New Jersey Nets.
They were still Brooklyn. They were still New Jersey at this time, though.
Okay, so then they were on their way to Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think they made the announcement that in a couple of years they're going to move. And they traded for Darren Williams this year, I believe.
Same season, same trade deadline move was for Deron Williams. Yes, that's why I want to say they were in Brooklyn already.
They weren't.
They weren't?
No, he played in New Jersey for a bit. I remember the exact first year in Brooklyn.
Okay, so then a part of me actually was pissed about that the Nets had gotten Deron Williams and he was available. Because remember, it was Deron Williams and Chris Paul as the 1 and 2 point guards. And I'd rather have seen a point guard with Amare in a system with D'Antoni.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was pissed about too. Now that you mentioned that. Also,
great.
It would have been better, but hindsight 2020, Deron Williams' ankles ended up being messed up.
Yeah, and then he started getting lazy, gaining weight, and he just lost. It seemed like he lost his drive.
Not just lazy.
You know, I used what'd you say?
Not just lazy. They were saying that he had injury problems in his knee.
No, I'm saying injuries, lazy, and gaining weight, probably all of which are correlated.
Maybe, but it's again, I think it's like what's happening with Anthony Davis now. People are just quick to shit on him. I don't know. Like these guys play all day, every day. I don't know if they're human.
All I know is this: Darren Williams in 2013, when he was first playing that first season with the Nets, he was still really good. In the second half of the season, he was still really good. They made the playoffs and lost in the 7th game, but they were the next year though, when they got Garnett and Pierce, not only was he starting to get more injuries, but it seemed like because he had other guys, he like deferred and tried to set the table, but I feel like he lost his aggression. You know what I mean? Like he lost that, like, I'm still Darren Williams. You know what I mean? And he just never was. He was okay for another year after that, but not an all-star anymore. He had flashes of it. But I don't know, because here's my thing. I know Chris Paul is different, but Chris Paul had so many injuries. He had a major surgery in 2009-10. But his drive, like his motive, I don't think he even had his natural ability in terms of like physicality. His D. Will was big. Like Darren Williams was like, I wore number 8 in elementary school because of him. But I just think that Chris Paul is like an example of a guy who also got injured a lot. I can't compare the injuries, but I feel like his Chris Paul just takes it so much more seriously than D. Will. He takes it more seriously than a lot of players though. But I feel like that's what separated them to me.
At that time, it was 1A, 1B.
I'm saying though, but I'm saying how it kind of ended up like over time. Now it seems crazy because I feel like Chris is so much more committed. I know he probably got, but it's easy to say that D. Will just got unlucky with injuries, but Chris has had so many injuries too. Although I don't know about like how chronic his ankle injuries were and how severe they really got for Darren, but I know that Chris Paul had major hamstring problems, and then of course his wrists always would break because he would reach for steals and get caught up in jerseys. But yeah,
I get to Chris Paul in a second because again, that was leading to the lockout season, and it was important for in my opinion, to have gone after a Deron Williams or a Chris Paul because you have Amare, and he just came from a system in Phoenix, and you brought the coach to New York. You brought Amare to New York, so the whole culture, the whole system revolves around the point guard, and you already have the second star, or maybe even the first star, some would argue, in Amare in a system like that. You need a point guard to feed him, and Deron Williams would have been perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. Would I have agreed to trade the entire team for him? No, but maybe you wouldn't have needed to. Maybe you wouldn't have needed to because they would have had more leverage, even though they say he was beefing with Jerry Sloan at the time, God bless the dead. But either way, I didn't agree with that. They were headed to a lockout season. So I thought, you're saying that Carmelo has to figure it out with Amare. We're all agreeing with that. The media, everyone. Well, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. How much time do you think Amare Stoudemire needs? What are you guys talking about right now? This guy just came off of surgery. By the way, his contract is uninsured. So that means that they might have to pay for it, and there's no insurance on it. It's going to hurt the cap even worse. And now you're saying it's going to take time for him and Carmelo to get it together. Carmelo, who, by the way, like he went to the Western Conference Finals, but what did he do besides that?
That's it. He lost in the first round every single year of his career besides 2009 up until that point, including 2010, where he was the higher seed against the Jazz, a series I have no recollection of in terms of specifics. I would love to watch that series back when they were the 4 seed coming off that 09 season and lost in the first round. And then 08, when they had Iverson, I'm not saying they should have won at all. They definitely shouldn't have. But the way that they got swept by the Lakers. And I promise you, I was just talking about this with you. I just watched that whole series back in the last couple of months. I kid you not, he didn't have one good game. Not one in the series. Embarrassing. He was missing layups, missing dunks. His defense was bad. And in game 3, after game 3, they were down 2-0. They come back to Denver, must-win situation. Everyone knows in basketball, when you're down 2-0, you cannot lose that third game. They got blown out. And then he came up with a quote the next game saying that we basically quit. Unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Like, yeah, okay, that's great for being honest. So unacceptable, though.
And they traded Iverson for Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, that was a great trade, though.
It was awesome. And there's actually a recent interview with Carmelo Anthony on JJ Redick's podcast, and he talks about that. And he said, you know, it hurt him because Iverson was his man. He said for Chauncey Billups, he was like, okay, that's cool. And he said, Chauncey Billups they say, yo, we're going to the finals. He's like, why are you talking that? Like, you're getting ahead of yourself. He's like, nah. So every 10 games, he would always come back to Carmelo and he would approach him. He would say, all right, we're going to go 6-4 in the next 10 games. We're going to go 7-3 in the next 10 games. And he would operate that way on a 10-game tenure. So him coming with Carmelo to New York, in hindsight now, learning that was really good. But again, you're trading away so many pieces to a team that gave us so much of a lightning rod. And I didn't think Billups, he was too old and it wasn't enough. It seemed bad, again, heading into a lockout season, because the last lockout season that there was, the Knicks did make it to the finals. But that lockout season, going back to Vin Baker being an alcoholic, there's a lot of players that lost, that gained weight and they lost their way. Sean Kemp, they gained weight and lost their way because it's a lockout. They didn't know what to do. So when the lockout season coming along, and then you got to get these guys together, it was like I wasn't looking forward to it. I was hoping I was going to be pleasantly surprised, like Amare had done for me at the first half of that year, though. I
think another thing I want to mention about Melo too is I noticed a big change from him after the Olympics in Beijing, when he played with the other winners, like real. I'm not saying he wasn't a winner, but like his levels to the winners, Kobe, LeBron. And when he came back that next season, he sacrificed his stats. But I think it's because, and I don't remember this off the top of my head, but he did sacrifice his stats. He had worse stats, but he was more respected than ever before. And I know that him lowering his stats definitely helped them win, because I remember that season he was more committed on defense. You had those famous games with him and Kobe in the West Conference Finals were going one-on-one with each other. That's not something that he was doing in 08. Like, he was not taking any challenge on defenses like that. And it was just, I think Melo really changed that year, 09. And then that's why I want to look back at the 2010 series to see like if he went wrong or anything. But those Denver teams with Billups those 2 years were taken much more seriously than the Iverson teams or any teams that he had prior. But as you said, he comes in 2011. He had that first game against Milwaukee. There was a lot of buzz being that he's around the area. But you just did not get any kind of boost with that trade that year. You had a couple of good wins. I remember against Miami, you won when LeBron choked. And I remember after the game, he said, I just continue. Famous, I'll never forget it. I was getting on LeBron. I was like, dude, you're my favorite player. You cannot close games. And they didn't know who to close with, Wade or LeBron. And I remember he said, I just keep flailing up late in games, and I won't continue to do that. I'll remember that quote forever. LeBron said that after you guys lost to you guys in the regular season.
Not two. LeBron, a three for the tie. No! I just keep fouling them late in games, and I won't continue to do that.
And then you guys make the playoffs, 42-40 though. So you were exactly 500 with Carmelo Anthony this season. So it didn't do anything. It did not improve anything. But I remember, people were saying, can they work? But there was also the whole, it was mid-season. They didn't get a full training camp. There was all that. You guys match up with the Celtics in the first round. Obviously, the Celtics were heavily favored. And I just looked at this series. I remember the first two games in Boston were close. Chauncey Billups gets injured after the first game and misses the rest of the series with a strained knee. But in the first game, I forgot about this. You guys were up 51-39 at halftime. And then only scored 13 points in the third quarter, outscored 13-20, and 48-34 in the whole second half to lose by 2 points. Carmelo Anthony in the second half goes 1 of 11 and 0 of 5 from deep. Chauncey 1 of 7 in the second half. Celtics win by 2.
On the clock. Boston down by a point. No call made. They would have fouled out Anthony. Here is Allen for 3. Yes! The Celtics have taken the lead. Knicks without a timeout. 2-point lead. Here comes Douglas. Douglas with 8 seconds. 7. Down to 5. Down to 4. Anthony for the win. It is all over. Ray Allen with a clutch 3-pointer. And the Celtics have come away with an 87-85 victory in Game 1.
Look at the execution from Boston, freeing up Ray Allen for his 1 millionth clutch shot in his career. And then at the other end, not a good look from Carmelo Anthony, settling for about a 28-footer. He's got to put the ball on the floor and attack.
So the Celtics make it 10.
And then you get swept because Chauncey doesn't play the rest of the series, and that's that.
So it's interesting that you do bring up the Celtics. Rondo got hurt. He didn't play that series, or
not that one. No, I'm sorry. That wasn't that one. 2011 he played.
So they sneakily had like a big four because of Rondo, and they had drafted Rondo, and I only knew about Rondo because I used to play fantasy sports back then when it first came out, and I used to have Rondo on my teams. I didn't know who the hell he was. I just knew he was getting like triple doubles and double doubles. That's when they had Al Jefferson because that's what they traded for.
Traded for Garnett. Yeah.
Right. So him being part of that big four, that's part of the deal with Laker fans now. They're going through it, and you know, when they signed LeBron and they traded for AD, there's so much that weighs heavily on three guys when you do this whole super team thing. And the Nets went through it last year as well. The Lakers went through it last year as well. All those injuries, the Clippers are going through it. When you have so much relying on two or three guys, if one of them gets hurt, what happens? The dynamic is done. So Chauncey Billups was a part of our big three that season. Once he went down,
there was no chance. I know.
No chance. I mean, he couldn't even set the table. He couldn't do anything.
Tony Douglas was starting for the rest of the series, from my memory.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But,
and what's crazy is you mentioned Rondo. I'm looking at his stats for the series: 19 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists, and 50% shooting. That's legit.
Shocker.
Yeah.
He busted our ass.
Yeah. 22 for Allen, 22 for Pierce too. So that team, but you know what? It wasn't a big deal then. I remember everybody saying, they weren't expected to win. Celtics won the East 2 out of the last 3 years. Let's see what happens when they get a full training camp under their belt with Melo and Amare. And that leads us to the lockout. You got anything on that? Tyson Chandler, huge move. And the trade, I looked this up before we got on. Listen to this trade. This is a fleece by you guys. Andy Routens, Roni Turiaf, and a second rounder for Tyson Chandler coming off a championship. Huge.
Dallas? Why did Dallas do that to get rid of salary cap?
I truly don't know. I'd love to remember why, because that totally killed that destroyed their team in terms of their chance to, maybe try to defend their title. They were a sweep in the next year after with OKC.
Turiaf ends up playing for the Lakers, right?
That was before. He actually came to us.
Okay. Yeah, so we got Tyson Chandler. I thought that was cool, but again, it was a good front court.
That's what everybody was saying. Best front court besides Memphis. I remember that talk. Melo, Amare, and Tyson Chandler. But you didn't have a backcourt. That's the thing, because Chauncey went to the Clippers. He came to us. You amnestied him. So then it was who is your starting point guard? And I remember the very first game of the season. By the way, this is the end of Donnie Walsh. You guys had Glenn Grunwald.
Glenn Grunwald. Donnie Walsh didn't even last 1 year with after signing Amare. Lasted less than 7 months after trading for Carmelo Anthony. They were saying that they forced him out. That James Dolan forced him out.
Why?
He didn't want him anymore. He used him.
He made the team better though.
He used him to get the two superstars that he wanted, so we can create a buzz for the MSG network. That's my conspiracy theory.
And then just kick him to the curb for no reason.
They say Isaiah was in his ear, and I mean, we would have to look at that. We really have to look at that. Why force him out?
Yeah.
What as a businessman, would you force this guy out after
no?
He did exactly what you wanted him to do.
Yeah, and we got you back to the playoffs for the first time in.
By the way, Donnie Walsh is a New York guy. He's from Manhattan. So it wasn't like he wasn't familiar with New York. He was so comfortable with the media, by the way. If you look at Donnie Walsh interviews, this guy's just like a gangster.
Yeah.
He's like an old school New Yorker. I love the way he talks.
But so I remember coming into this season, this was a lockout, and I remember watching this first game on Christmas because the Christmas was the start of the season that year. It was you guys against the Celtics at MSG. Pierce didn't play, but you guys won because Melo went off in the fourth quarter, from my memory. I can look at the stats right now, actually. Yeah, he had 17 points in the fourth. I remember. My memory serves me correct. 17 points in the fourth. You guys win against the Celtics, and it looks like, this is going to be a different Knicks team. But that's when problems started happening with D'Antoni and just a lack of chemistry. And as you said, just Amare and Melo not working well together. Their efficiency was terrible in this beginning of the season. Melo had games where he's shooting 20-plus shots, and he's not shooting it well. And you guys end up and I remember that's when the talk started about, can Melo and Amare coexist? This was big time now because there was no excuse about no training camp. 9-15 through the first 24 games of the season.
By the way, this would have all been resolved, any one of these problems, if the Knicks had the balls, I just remembered, to amnesty Amare Stoudemire instead of Chauncey Billups.
But why would they have done that coming off 2011?
Because Amare and Carmelo are basically not the same type of person, but they're, again, the face-up ball hog guys, but the ball stopper guys.
But we didn't know it was going to be a train wreck yet until.
No. With that, it was up in the air. Anyone even if you were in analytics, you got the stud. It wasn't like Carmelo isn't a stud. Like, I don't want to get that twisted. Carmelo Anthony is Carmelo Anthony, bro. But the problem is, if you got this guy in the front court, who do you have? Who, by the way, there's a possibility to trade for in the offseason during the lockout. What trade was canceled in this offseason during the lockout?
CP3 to the Lakers.
So if you amnesty Amare Stoudemire and keep D'Antoni, you need a point guard still. You couldn't get Deron Williams, and you could have gotten CP3 in some sort of crazy trade or something.
But here's my question. Who are your assets? You traded them all for Denver, for Melo.
Right, but you think you're getting better with Amare, and that was the problem for me. There's no way they were going to be better. I should not know that. There's no way I'm that smart of a basketball dude sitting on my couch, before having a microphone to talk about YouTube. I felt this way back then. I felt if they were smart and they had the balls, they would amnesty Amare Stoudemire. That was the tough executive decision move to make back then. Amnestying Amare Stoudemire. I know it would have been crazy to do, and it would have been ballsy to do, but they should have done it. They should have. That was the move to make.
Well, 9-15 though to start the year. Everyone's talking about, this Knicks team is a disaster. It's definitely like, you look at Mike D'Antoni teams. He likes to go small. He likes to run a lot of pick and rolls. You guys don't have that personnel. You have two ISO guys. That's not really D'Antoni style. And you go big. You know what I mean? Traditional. Because the thing is, when you look at the 2006 Suns, they started those whole small balls 5-out thing because Boris Diaw was at the 5. They had Tim Thomas, Sean Marion, and Raja Bell spread the floor for Nash. And could not be further from that. This is Tyson Chandler, Melo, and Amare, traditional small forward, power forward, center. Then everything changes with number 17, Taiwanese wonder from Torrance, Jeremy Lin against New Jersey. Huge game. Melo gets hurt in the next game. You beat the Jazz again. I remember watching the next game against the Wizards. He put up another double-double. Then the game winner against Toronto happened, and Linsanity was born. everything changed. So there's nothing like being there in the moment. You got to tell me what it was like.
When it was born?
No, I'm saying Linsanity was born. And yeah, I was going to say, what was it like in the moment? 8-1 with Melo out. 8-1. Turn your whole season around.
I just looked up the Amare amnesty thing. Can I go back to that real quick or no?
Go for it.
I just looked up an article, right, where it says, not amnestying Amare is the worst personnel decision in recent New York Knicks history. Again, remember, Amare's contract was uninsured. That means they had insurance on Larry Johnson's contract, if I'm not mistaken, because he had a hurt back. You're able to get rid of this contract. If they can't play, since you have insurance on it, you don't have to, it doesn't affect the salary cap. So with Carmelo or the Amare, it's uninsured. So now if you try to cut him or buy him out, you have to. It's going to hurt the salary cap even further, especially if he can't play because his knee is messed up. Right? It would have relieved us of $80 million in the next 3 years.
Damn.
It just made more sense. You can look up who the free agents were going to be in the next 2 or 3 years after that. But to pair up with Carmelo, who's never had an injury problem, was a workhorse. Tyson Chandler, you had another 1.5 years with him or whatever it was. If Billups would have stayed around. Billups played all right with the Clippers until he tore his ACL, right?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
So that was my whole thing with Amare. Like, if you let that contract go, it would have been like having insurance on it.
Yeah, I feel that. But so when Melo, 8-1 with Linsanity, Melo comes back, and I remember there were talks that Melo and Amare's admitted this later, I believe, that they were a little jealous about all the attention that Lin was getting.
It was a crazy time. Like, Linsanity was, we seen all the Asian
fans,
all these Asian fans come out of nowhere as rooting for the Knicks. That was crazy. What he did to especially the game against the Lakers.
Yeah, I remember I had a basketball game that night at the park, and I remember hearing about it after the game. I watched it like on replay on my DVR.
And I remember Melo saying, like, yeah, I pushed for him to get into the starting lineup because he used to do well in practice and everything. So it sounded like everything was all good. He was a point guard that we may have been looking for, like I've been stressing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it was. I think D'Antoni got his point guard. And then when Melo came back, it screwed everything up again. Because I know Lin's probably like, okay, this is still Carmelo Anthony. I want to get him going because I want to work together. I want to get him comfortable. But it just didn't mesh immediately with D'Antoni. You guys went 2-8 when Melo came back, and Mike D'Antoni resigned. And I think what Mike D'Antoni wanted at this point was for Melo to go to the 4, and then they'd have Tyson starting and bring Amare off the bench. And I don't remember where it was, but it was in an article I just read a couple of days ago that said they would both refuse to do that. Melo had a hesitancy playing the 4, probably because the 4 back then was a true 4. A lot of physicality, more rebounding emphasis. And then Amare didn't want to go off the bench. He had an ego. He was a star. And Jeremy Lin, it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And he resigned. J.R. Smith comes around, and then Woodson takes over, and Woodson slows the pace down, but you guys end up winning. You start out 5-0 with Woodson, and then end the season.
But hold on. Before you even go further, that thing ended with the Miami Heat coming. We go to play the Miami Heat. I'm in a bar, I think on Union Square, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, this is going to be his first test because this is the best team in the league. Really.
You talking about Jeremy Lin?
Yes, Jeremy Lin. So what they do to him, what they commence to do to him, LeBron later does about 6 or 7 years later against Porzingis. And he tries to do it again against Doncic, and he finds out that Doncic is the real deal. At the end of the game, he slaps Doncic 5. He's like, yo, you was a bad motherfucker. Because they attacked him. They gave him a bloody lip and everything, if I'm not mistaken, Doncic. First player I ever seen LeBron do that with was Jeremy Lin. I thought it was a little racist. I always say that. It started then. Like, why are you picking on this guy? They saw it. They attacked him. Mario Chalmers, who just came back, he said he was depressed for the last like 2 years. He's back with Memphis, if I'm not mistaken. He was pressing Jeremy Lin.
Against the Orlando Magic here in this building, holding Dwight Howard to only 10 points, 5 of 10 shooting.
Oh, the steal by Chalmers. He's been all over Lin. The downside with Jeremy Lin.
If there's anything on the book on Jeremy Lin, you talked about it, it's the turnovers. Chalmers doing a good job of picking up full and into transition, getting the ball ahead to one of the closers, Dwayne Wade. Come up with a block shot or a steal, getting out in transition.
Lin penetrated, trying to get it to Stoudemire, picked off. Here comes Wade.
Got Chalmers from the backside.
Foul is on Chalmers. They double up again on Lin. Gets it inside, picked off. Bosch coming on. Lin on the penetration. He got bottled up. The ball slapped away. Lost it. Last touch by Lin.
That's his third turnover in this first quarter. Mario Chalmers is doing an excellent job of frustrating Jeremy Lin. Spread the floor, try to drive and kick.
Here is Lin over Cole. Rebounded by James. On for Baron Davis. He's got to a better state. Presented by State Farm as we look at Jerry Lin's timeline. February 4th against the Nets. Nets gets an opportunity. Off the bench, scores 25 points against the Jazz. First career start. Puts up 28, 38, along with 7 assists against the Lakers. Oh, the steal as Lin had it taken out of his hands by Cole. Oh, look out. Cole railing hard. And Lin continues to have difficulties. That's the game.
But look at Cole right here. Just anticipates the pass area and comes up with the steal here and learn how to fall better.
Miami up by 1. Lin with a runner that is an air ball. He has struggled in this first Anthony, and he lost it. Now J.R. Smith with a 3-on-2. Lin, and it's an offensive foul.
Since being a starter.
Well, he has certainly been a target. A strip, good job by Stoudemire. Lin had it knocked away. Good play by Battier. Here comes LeBron. Oh, he hammers it home. A two-handed jam.
Defensively turns up the rudder. They're almost unbeatable. They lead the league from steals to points in transition and almost 21 a game. A nice finish there by LeBron James with the steal, and then back after that was Dwayne Wade just robbing.
LeBron D. Wade, they were full court pressing Jeremy Lin. He got exposed.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats of that game. February 23rd, 2012, Jeremy Lin, 1 of 11. 8 turnovers.
Points.
8 points.
Yeah, 8 points. Okay.
8 points, like 8 turnovers. He has many turnovers. He has points.
It was bad. He was getting ripped at three-quarters court by Mario Chalmers. It was awful. And the other thing that stood out to me was that nobody on the Knicks came by to clothesline anybody on the Miami Heat. Nobody threw an elbow. Nothing. That's what disgusted me more. And that was the first time I saw, yo, what's up with Jeremy Lin's his teammates? He's supposed to be the new guy, the new star. I didn't think they were jealous, but I thought they were kind of scared and intimidated by LeBron and too friendly. Like nobody was gonna go walk up to LeBron or D Wade or Mario Chalmers and just smack the shit out of him. We're the Knicks. Well, I thought Melo was supposed to be this tough guy. He was a fake. That's another thing I didn't like about Melo. He was a fake tough dude to me. I didn't talk about the Marty Collins thing, by the way. I forgot to talk about that. When he knocked out Marty Collins, and you can hear him break his jaw on live television, damn near. And he backpedaled to his bench when he was on the Denver Nuggets. He got suspended for like 15 games. He talks about how David Stern called his agent and told him, what is Carmelo doing hanging out with this guy and this guy? And he's doing in a stop snitching video. I always thought Carmelo had his mind on the wrong place. So going back to the Jeremy Lin thing, all right, if you're a tough guy and you want to be a street dude, you should have showed it right then and there. You have your new stud who could possibly be pretty good. But now you're giving into the whole image, and now you're giving into them targeting him, and you didn't protect him, and you didn't, like Amare didn't do that. Nobody protected this kid.
You know, here's the thing. I'm not saying I know this for a fact, but I think there's a chance that they were like, good, he's getting exposed, then they'll know it's still our team. Egos play. I know who Melo, like, I'm not saying I know him personally, but I know I've gotten to learn him over all these years and how he is. And I mess with him. And I think he got humbled in this whole when he got out of the league thing, for sure. Now he's a lot more buying into his role on various teams. But when he was a star, man, he wanted to be the guy. And he always did. And then, so D'Antoni resigns. And I remember D'Antoni's biggest thing was him and Melo weren't getting along. He likes Lin. And Lin liked him because he got a lot out of him. But then, so Woodson comes. You guys start out great. He slows down the pace. And I look back at the scores from this time, and you know how you guys did it. And I remember it now was with defense. Woodson made it a defensive-minded attitude. You guys were holding teams down to a lot better scores or much more, lower scores. And you ended the season 18-6. And I think when Lin gets injured and tears his meniscus in March, that's when Melo started to have some games, to me, where he started being embraced more by the Knicks fans. And that was when that famous Easter game came, when he hit those 2 threes on the right wing, and everybody's going nuts. That was Melo's most iconic moment as a Knick up until that point, without a doubt. And to end the season like that, was there optimism? You said it was fool's gold, but was it optimism? Because I remember there was optimism. Not that you would do anything, but that, this could go places.
Rose misses another. Smith has it. Knicks down 3. Should the Bulls foul? No. Anthony for 3. Bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied. Shumpert on the drive. Out to Anthony. Smith, a three-pointer. Way off the mark. Chandler tips it out again. And the Knicks will reset down by 2. Mike Woodson not calling timeout.
And I like that move.
In the hands of Anthony. Anthony for 3. Puts it in! Knicks by 1 with 8.2 remaining. And again, you've got a 6'9" guy on you. He's a couple of feet again beyond the arc. Boy, both teams hitting such big shots. Shumpert picks him up on the switch. They both fall down inside to Noah. Noah on the dribble. Back out to Korver. Final seconds. Rose dribbles it off. Rose drives, puts it up. No good. And the Knicks win in overtime.
That was against the Heat.
No, Bulls. You lost against the Heat that year in the playoffs. I'm just saying that game was on Easter.
Oh, that was the Bulls game. That was the Bulls.
Easter Bulls. Lin had already gotten hurt. Yeah, 100-99, April 8th, Sunday.
No, that was. I want to say that was his biggest moment as a Knick.
Okay.
For me personally, there was no better moment for Carmelo. There was no better moment where he had me riled up. All that 3-point nonsense. That was his biggest moment by far, and it was the closest thing to what we had to regain the excitement that Amare had brought in, like those first 6 months before Carmelo got there. That 2010-2011 season, that was the first time Melo was able to do that.
Yeah. Do you remember opinions starting to change about him amongst the fans?
They did not change. It was, if you were a Melo guy, you were a Melo guy. You still got Knicks fans that go crazy over Carmelo. I just, he was proving me right, and I didn't like that. I would rather have been proven wrong and been pleasantly surprised like I was with Amare, but I was not. It was going exactly how I thought it would go.
So you get into the playoffs. Problem is, even though you ended the season 18-6 with Woodson and it improved your defense, the problem is you're playing against the Heat. And everybody knew that they were going to go to the championship that year. They were the championship favorites from day one after losing in 2011. And you guys won a game. Well, actually, I want to start in game 2. You guys lost both the games in Miami, and Amare Stoudemire punches the fire extinguisher and breaks his hand. And then you win a game in New York.
Shumpert got hurt.
You're right. Game 1, he tore his ACL.
I know. Right? Yeah, that hurt because Shumpert was a rookie.
Yes.
But defensively, I thought I was looking at the new, like, not Scottie Pippen, but it was Tony Allen, it was great. Shumpert, his rookie season defensively, I don't think he ever played the same way after that, ever again. He looked amazing defensively, and when he
third quarter when it happened,
if I'm not mistaken, he tore his ACL and he was guarding D Wade. If I'm not mistaken,
and you guys lost all the games in that series, the first 3 by double digits. Game 4 was close. You guys won, and then you guys lost in game 5. And then the question was, where did they go from there? Do you re-sign Jeremy Lin? And then you didn't. So
before we signed Baron Davis too, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right. You did sign Baron Davis. I think that was because of Jeremy Lin getting injured, right?
I think so. And his knee blew up on live television. That was crazy.
Baron was washed. We had him at the Clippers, and he was already washed. But
it was B Diddy, man. I used to love Baron Davis, man.
I feel you. I did too until he came to the Clippers. But
so the offseason hit. Is this 2012, 2013?
Yeah, it's 2012 offseason. So it's like, would you re-sign Jeremy Lin? Morey gave him a big offer sheet, and you guys didn't match.
He was a restricted free agent. So Daryl Morey signed what's called a poison pill contract or poison pill offer sheet to Jeremy Lin. It's $25 million. I remember it. I remember this because this is what solidified my opinion about Carmelo and about what's his name? J.R. Smith.
Wait, sorry, fun fact. I just want to say Tyson Chandler won Defensive Player of the Year in 2012. And that was largely because of the second half of the season with Woodson.
Which is still crazy. Like
36-30. I mean, you guys finished 36-30. It wasn't terrible.
No, it was crazy, but Carmelo Anthony comments on Jeremy Lin's contract, and he's saying it's like basically too much money. Like that's too much money for a guy like that. And
Carmelo said that?
Carmelo said that.
Wow.
J.R. Smith says people are going to be uncomfortable with that in the locker room if a guy like him gets to make that much money, and we have this many players around the league who are veterans and don't even get to get that. Amare Stoudemire ends up admitting that there was friction in the locker room over the contract. D'Antoni echoes all of that in a podcast like from 4 years ago. So the fact that Carmelo would ever, as a superstar, speak on another player's contract he should have left it as he started it off. That's not my decision. That's the front office's decision, and that's it. But he spoke on it, and I lost all my respect for Carmelo Anthony after that, because in the poison pill contract, you have 5 years. 5 years. It doesn't cost the Knicks anything. That last year, that third year in a poison pill contract for $15 million, it becomes an expiring contract. It becomes an asset. He could have been the worst player ever in the history of the NBA, but the $15 million gets to come off the books, and any team would want that. Carmelo didn't understand it. The players didn't understand that, and it was just crazy to see them even comment on it. And again, it felt racist, and it felt like they were doubling down on the whole Miami Heat game, where you just said like it was almost like they were glad that the Heat hounded them.
And that's also like they can make the point like we played our best basketball after Lin went down with Woodson. Like, you know what I mean? We don't need Lin. Like they could have been saying that too.
They were saying that. And in that offseason, we ended up getting Raymond Felton and Jason
Felton
Kidd
back. Jason Kidd from Dallas, who was in his last year, but man, he helped. And then
that was another reason why I was excited about if we were going to sign Jeremy Lin, because at that point you have 3 point guards, and the league was headed towards having point guards. Again, going back to me wanting Deron Williams and CP3. Okay, we didn't get that. Well, damn, if we would have had Jeremy Lin now with Raymond Felton and Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd can groom this kid. It would have been perfect for him to, be his mentor.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been pretty great, but you guys had your team. Amare missed the whole almost first half of the season with a knee injury. So your starting lineup was Raymond Felton, Jason Kidd. And then I remember from my memory a little bit of Ronnie Brewer, but it says here that he only started – okay, he started 34 games. So he started the first around – it was the beginning of the season where he was really the starter. And you had Melo playing the 4, which is exactly what D'Antoni initially wanted. But now he's doing it. and Tyson Chandler was at the 5. And I thought it was really good. It looked like Melo finally – the Knicks finally had an identity where there was not moving parts. They had a coach they liked. Melo was buying in. He was leading by example. I think Jason Kidd was like that type of guy like that. He's a culture-changing kind of guy. Like he will – everything more serious with a guy like that because he – even at 40 years old or whatever, he still plays defense. You know, he still was able to, as we talked about it all the time, as he improved his jump shot, was able to be a spot-up guy. And you guys hit the ground running that year. That was when I got the fortunate pleasure of going to Madison Square Garden for my first time. 2012-13 season, New Year's Day, January 1st, 2013. I remember it. I had a ticket against the Blazers, and Carmelo was rumored to be like questionable for the game. And I was like, no, like we paid so much for this ticket. Like I really want him to play, even though I wasn't a huge Melo guy, but I really wanted him to play. We get the news an hour before game time that he's going to play, and he drops 45 points in the game. You guys did lose, though, by 3 to a rookie Damian Lillard with Nicholas Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge. But that was my first exposure to a Knicks game, and it was just amazing with the fans and how knowledgeable they were. And every time Melo got the ball, go to work, Melo, take it to the rim. Like, it was just like everybody yelling from the crowd. And I remember Amare Stoudemire, that was the game that he came back from injury. And the second he got on his feet from the bench, the whole crowd rose. And I was like, whoa. Like, I didn't think they liked him like that.
Here's the roar for Stoudemire. And the ovation, standing ovation.
Substitution for the Knicks. Number 1, Amare Stoudemire.
That easy, some of the butterflies, Mike. I'm sure he didn't know what type of.
And that was incredible. It just showed the knowledge of the Knicks fans, how much they were paying attention and how much they knew what was going on. But it was a good game. You guys came up short. But that Knicks team, you know, J.R. Smith won 6th Man of the Year. He was awesome. That was the year of his career right there. This is the best Knicks team of my time watching basketball and the best of the 21st century. 54 wins. Carmelo finishes 3rd in MVP. And you were the 2nd seed in the East. You made your mark being a solid team on both ends of the floor. You played a slow pace, bottom 5 in pace, but 3rd best offensive rating this year in the league. And Melo was a huge reason of that. 29 points a game, 45% shooting, 7 rebounds. Jason Kidd did his thing. Amare wasn't really a part of this team like that, but Tyson had a great year, and Raymond Felton had a great year. So tell me what was like that season was the best in like a long time. You seem to not be too high on it when we talked about it before, but let me know.
It was again, I just felt it was fool's gold, and Melo playing
54 wins, still fool's gold.
Yeah, because it was the East wasn't strong.
That's true.
So Amare sitting out again. They should, if they amnestied him, we wouldn't be worried about that. They had a chance at another free agent. But they didn't. They didn't do all that. And Raymond Felton, like, what were we gonna do in the playoffs? Is Raymond Felton at the point guard? Jason Kidd was wobbling.
Hopefully win a series, which you did. That's a stepping stone. You hadn't won a series since '99.
Who did we beat?
Boston. So here's what happened. You got the 2 seed. Raymond Felton had one of his best seasons of his career, probably his best, I'd say. Most memorable would be a starting point guard and a 2 seed. And you guys, what's crazy is that game I went to, you guys were down by 3, and Jason Kidd forced a jump ball for you guys to even get a chance to tie the game.
Wow, I remember that.
You really?
Yeah.
You guys were down by 3. You'd come back. The crowd was getting super loud. Jason Kidd forced a jump ball, and then Melo, he pulled up from the exact same spot that he made those 3s on Easter against Chicago. But he missed. Right. But he had a great game. But you guys played the Celtics. You played the Celtics.
I don't remember beating this. So that's crazy.
What happened was Rondo tore his ACL that year early in the season. So you guys were favored coming into that series. You went up 3-0. They won 2 games, though, later to try to give you guys a test. And then in game 6, they had a furious comeback, Boston, but you guys closed them out. And I think that was one of Melo's best moments as a Knick, and honestly in his career, to lead a team past the playoff series because he hasn't done it much. And right. I'm gonna look at the playoff stats right now. You ended Pierce and Garnett's careers as Celtics, and I think that was big time. Carmelo, 29 points. He only averaged 38% shooting in the series, but 29 points. He got the job done. Raymond Felton averaged 17 points on 47% shooting in that series. That's impressive. And then JR got 15. And then Tyson Chandler does his Tyson Chandler thing. It's also of note, I want to note that Steve Novak is here by now, and he was I remember him being pretty popular with shooting the ball. And then Kmart came as well for some toughness off the bench.
And Rasheed was there. Rasheed Wallace was there.
Not this year, it says on the playoffs. Although I remember him being there, though. I remember him being there this year, but
okay, might have been the following season.
No, he was there this year, but for whatever reason, he didn't play in this Boston series.
I just thought it was fool's gold, and then they were gonna come against the Pacers, and it felt like Melo on the Denver Nuggets again. Like they just weren't.
What was your expectation going to that Pacers series? I remember it was mixed. Some people were taking the Knicks. I had the Pacers because I thought their collective IQ were higher than yours, and they had more weapons to me.
Paul George at the time, I was arguing with my boy because Danny Granger was like was still the star for the Pacers, and I would argue with him. I would tell him
not that year though. Really, I think at that point he had all his injury problems. That was the Paul George team.
Yes, he was.
But a couple years prior, there was conversation. Like even a year prior, actually, there was still some conversation about Granger and Paul George.
I was saying Paul George was better than Carmelo back then. Like I'd rather have Paul George than Carmelo. People got mad at me. I'm like, well, then you don't watch the Pacers and you don't have League Pass or whatever it is. Like I'm stealing the service, this European service. I'm using that to watch games, and I'm seeing Paul George kill. I think it was fantasy draft. I think I was in the fantasy draft then too, and I would see Paul George like have triple doubles and shit, and he just played all around better than Carmelo. I mean, Carmelo was just dominant.
One thing I'll say about Paul is like, especially having on my team now, he plays defense. Like he's not like insane like people think because he's a star, but like he plays defense. He's not like Carmelo was. And honestly, this might be a hot take to some people, but all time I think Paul George is better than Carmelo because of that. I think he will go down better. You think so?
That's not a hot take.
Okay, I hope so. Because Carmelo just has that notoriety to his name being the 0-3, and he's such a good scorer. I think Carmelo's a better scorer probably, but Paul George overall, it's defense.
I don't even know if he's a better scorer. That's crazy to say.
I feel you. The only reason why I give him the edge is because he's and it works it works against him sometimes too over his course of his career. But one thing about Melo, he's not aggressive. You know what I mean? That's one thing with Paul. It's like sometimes I'm not saying he's like timid. He's not timid, but sometimes it's like, Paul, go to the rim. Although Melo does settle too, though. But I don't know. One thing I like about Melo is he likes to post up more, and some guys just can't guard him in the post. Even now,
he has a clunky post up game. And if you watch like Carmelo's younger years, his rookie year, he's crossing dudes up. Like it's not great, but there's a crossover there. He has a hand.
I remember him. It was filthy, but honestly, I think he got better when he mixed in the face up and the post up more.
Yeah, but he wasn't practicing a lot of stuff. Like he didn't really go to his if he's posting you up, he didn't really go right. He didn't spin right. He didn't. And he would always kind of like do that fake move and go left. He had like Kevin Garnett-ish, but he's still more clunkier. And he didn't. I don't think he did the best job training and dieting. The way he's doing it now, what he's doing now is amazing. Back then, he still looked kind of chubby or whatever. Like he still kind of has some weight on him. If he would have taken it more seriously, I don't know. We might be talking about like a different kind of tenure he ends up having on the Knicks. And Paul George was always more athletic.
What's your memory of losing that series?
J.R. Smith doing some dumb shit. I think he did some dumb shit against the Celtics, and that's what got him suspended in the Pacers series, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm just saying that right now. He played every game of the Pacers series.
He did?
But listen to this. 13 points a game on 29% shooting. That's like abysmal.
J.R. Smith.
Yeah. And then Melo averaged 28.5 on 43% shooting, so his percentage improved from the previous round. Not necessarily very efficient, but not bad.
It was horrible.
But here's the funny part. When I'm looking at the Pacers, no one even averaged 20 points in the series for them. It was super balanced. Paul with 19.5, David West with 15, George Hill with 16, Hibbert with 13, and Make 'em Dance Lance with 12.
Roy Hibbert.
He had a great season that year, though. He gave the Heat problems because that was the one thing with the Heat. They didn't have much size. So they started doing Bosh at the 5 to spread the 4 for Bron and Wade and clear the lanes. But Roy Hibbert could dominate them. That's why it would have been interesting to see Miami go up against I think that's part of the reason why Duncan gave them problems too. Like even at his old age, like he was giving them nightmares. And then Dirk cooked them. Like they got beaten up by these bigs.
Yeah, Duncan missed that bunny.
Yeah, I remember that. He slapped the floor after.
He was upset. That
was a great series though.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I prefer that series to the Warriors Cavs one because the only good game, everyone likes to get caught up in that 3-1, which was awesome, but the only good game of that series to me was Game 7. Whereas the Heat one, Tony Parker was on his knees in that first game and he made that game winner. And then we had the Ray Allen shot. That game was a classic. And Game 7 was awesome.
I forgot about that Tony Parker game winner.
Yeah, when he's on the floor, that guy
Yeah.
was so cold at this time. He was in this conversation too with like, even though his stats didn't reflect it, but I would say like in the playoffs, there are not many point guards I would have rather had than him at this time.
He used to have so many points in the paint.
Insane. He led the league in points in the paint as a point guard.
Yes.
But he was better. I think he was better around this time because he developed that 18-footer. Then you couldn't go into the screen anymore with him.
Right. But going back to Paul George and the Knicks, I think he was exposed against the Heat. It was just like Joe Johnson. Paul George was Joe Johnson with Atlanta, and I'm blanking out. Who's the dude on Chicago now? Is killing
Zach LaVine. Oh, DeRozan.
DeRozan on Toronto.
Yeah,
they got exposed against LeBron too. They were looking at LeBron.
They took him to 7 games though. That was like a big deal back then. The Pacers even took him to 7 games.
Right, but I still think Paul George had a deer in the headlights moment. Like he was still in awe of LeBron.
Game 7 he did. Game 7 he did.
Even the way he spoke about LeBron. So I think the Pacers could have. George never had. He didn't. Even though I still feel like he tore his ankle and when he broke his leg, whatever it was,
that dog in him,
it ruined his confidence. It took him a while to even get back to being confident. But even then, like him and DeRozan and Joe Johnson and that Atlanta team, they would always give LeBron like way too much respect. And the veteran guys, the Spurs, the Celtics, they didn't care about that shit. The Pistons, no, they listen, we're gonna make you go, we're gonna make you shoot mid range. The Mavericks in the championship series to expose LeBron.
That was bad.
The Magic.
They put Jason Kidd on him for most of the series. It's insane. Watching back the footage, the 2011 Kidd on LeBron, and he couldn't even do anything. It was insane.
LeBron was trying to recruit Jason Kidd that season.
He was
trying to recruit him because they played in the Olympics together. And I couldn't understand it, like why he wanted Jason. I didn't understand any of those trades. They could have traded J.J. Hickson for Amare. But that was a rumor too. Anyway,
that was the one thing that LeBron fans love to bring up though, is that the incompetent front office that the Cavs had that didn't pull the trigger for Amare Stoudemire.
Yeah, it just depends. I don't know. There's mixed reviews about that. But Paul George was giving him too much respect. That's what I felt. And
did you feel disappointed? Oh, yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you feel disappointed? Because I didn't want to go too much into the Heat, but I was gonna say, did you feel disappointed when the Knicks lost to the Pacers? Or because I remember I know you were the higher seed, but I don't know what it was. I'm not around that many Knicks fans, but I feel like everybody was like happy with the season. 54 wins. We'll see what happens next season.
No, they weren't happy. It was like disappointment. Everyone was gassed up. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the hell you guys are getting gassed up for. Like everyone feels that way about the Knicks now. Like, why you guys so happy about RJ Barrett or whatever it is. Like, but this is the reason why Gary Payton in the 90s said nobody wants to go to New York, because it's crazy. The media is crazy. The fans are crazy. We're gonna hype anything up. Like we hyped the Knicks up last year. We hyped up Julius Randle last year.
I mean, it also really just comes down to your standards too. Like as fans, like what do you expect out of these guys? Like there's a lot of Knicks fans that are like, they love the 2013 season because they haven't experienced success like that. You know what I mean? As a fan, you have seen your team go to the finals and be 1 game away from winning the damn thing. Like you may have a different perspective.
But definitely do. I mean, it's been a long time since that.